Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's well. Let me just share my screen now. Give me 1 second. In the meantime, let me know where you're joining me from this evening. I saw we have people from Catania, Sicily. This evening I'm flying solo. Josh has abandoned me because he's taking part in the roadshow that MLA is doing at the moment. So I'm going to talk to you guys about using Easter in the English classroom because luckily for us teachers, Easter is next week, and that means that we get a short break, which I'm very much looking forward to. So let me share this now. Let's see where I've got Avelino. Hi, everyone. Today, Tanya. Maria Rosario, don't worry, you haven't missed anything. We're just about to start. So for those of you who I haven't met before, my name's Rebecca. I do work alongside Josh, who sends his regards, but he's in Turin this evening meeting some of our group leaders and doing a training course in person. So as I said, I'm going to guide you through using Easter in your English classrooms because, yeah, it's Good Friday next week. Okay, so... And of course, everyone will receive their certificate of participation and a webinar handout in the next few days. Of course, if you don't, please email us at formazione@mlaworld.com. And the handout will contain all the important information from this webinar, plus useful links, because we put our brains together, and any worksheets that you see during this presentation, you will receive them too. So they're ready-made to be used in the classroom. Now, Easter. Easter and its associated traditions and also foods, because who doesn't like talking about food? It gives us English teachers an opportunity to use a common part of both Italian and English speaking culture in your classroom. By looking at the similarities, Easter eggs, Christian origins, and also differences, so local traditions that we may have in the UK, typical dishes, obviously in Italy, you've got the colomba. We typically have lamb at Easter. You can introduce students gently into a tradition that is very familiar, but also ever so slightly different. And festivities such as Easter also allow us an opportunity to encourage students to use English to describe their own family traditions and habits. So rather than just repeating the normal weekly activities, students then may be able to recount activities or trips that happen less frequently. I think in Italy, you've got 1 week holiday, maybe. I know in the UK, students generally, pupils at school, they get 2 weeks holiday at Easter. So I know the school teachers here in England are very, very excited. MLA as a company, we take or at least in the UK, we take the Friday and the Monday. So I'm very much looking forward to a long weekend next weekend. 6-day holiday. Thank you very much, Isabella. Nice. Yeah. So obviously teachers can have plans, students can have plans, they can talk about the future, use be going to, will, all sorts of different conversations that you can bring into the classroom that you might not normally have. So some objectives. By the end of this session, teachers will be better able to incorporate traditions and themes of Easter into their English lessons, prepare activities related to traditional food. As I said, who doesn't like talking about food? And identify and explain some characteristics of a literary text. So while Josh isn't here, he has left a little bit of Josh in this presentation as we're going to talk about Yeats towards the end. So we're going to start with a video, and I want you guys to think about how many chocolate eggs are eaten in the UK at Easter. So have a think and make a guess in the chat. And we're going to watch the video and find out. To share my sound as well. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina. After
Stop pausing.
Christmas, the second biggest religious event of the year in the UK is Easter. Even for people who don't celebrate Easter as a religious observance, it is an important time of the year. The date changes every year, but it always coincides with the start of spring. In this lesson, you're going to learn about Easter and how it is celebrated. How many chocolate eggs are eaten in the UK at Easter? We'll show you the answer at the end of this video. At Easter, we give each other eggs. Eggs symbolize the resurrection and new life of Jesus Christ following his crucifixion. When this tradition started, it was bird eggs painted in bright colours that were given. Now, we give chocolate eggs to each other, and especially to children, that often have even more chocolate inside. A popular activity at Easter is to hold an Easter egg hunt. Small eggs are given in an area, usually a garden or public place, such as a school, and then people try to find them. The eggs can be real eggs that have been hard-boiled and painted, or small chocolate eggs. Schools will hold many events and competitions related to Easter, and one of the most famous is the Easter Bonnet Parade. For this, hats are decorated with Easter-related decorations, such as eggs, chicks, and rabbits. There are egg rolling competitions, where hard-boiled eggs are rolled down a slide or a hill, and the egg that travels the furthest without breaking apart wins. Also, there are egg decorating competitions. At Christmas, it is Santa Claus that brings the presents, but at Easter, it is the Easter Bunny that brings the eggs. Chocolate figures in the shape of bunnies are popular gifts at Easter, alongside the traditional eggs. And now I'll give you the answer to the earlier quiz.
Let me see. We've got 15,000 eggs, 3 per person. That's a lot, Lorena, because the population of the UK is quite big. What I guess? A million. Okay, let's see. I only eat one. Just saying it, but
How many chocolate eggs are eaten in the UK at Easter? Around 80 million eggs are eaten by Brits at Easter. This is particularly impressive for a country that has a population of only 63 million people. How was this lesson? Did you learn something interesting?
so that's a lot of eggs. Again, I only eat one myself. But they're the typical ones like you can buy in Italy. They're all different brands. For those who like dark chocolate, milk chocolate. But that is a lot. Exactly, Claudia. That's a lot of eggs. Yeah. A lot of chocolate. So I hope people brush their teeth afterwards too. But this video is quite nice. It gives lots of vocabulary. And again, it's included in the handout along with a quiz that I came up with too to complement it and make sure your students are actually paying attention.
Do you have any games?
Yes, thank you. Okay, some more food. I hope nobody's hungry. So one of my favorite things about Easter is our hot cross buns. And we're going to find out a bit about them now. So, as you may have guessed, it's a sweet bun, but it has fruit, spices, and it's marked with a cross on the top to represent the cross with Jesus. They're traditionally eaten on Good Friday across the Commonwealth. So we say in the UK, Ireland, Australia, India, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, and also some parts of the United States. They've kind of traveled across the Atlantic Ocean. There is a recipe, Claudia, you'll see. Wait and see. And nowadays in the UK, supermarkets kind of have a competition to see who can create the most different hot cross bun. They have ones with cheese. There are some that are completely chocolate. Some are different fruit like raspberries, strawberries. Lots of different options here. But these buns mark the end of the Christian season of Lent. And different parts of the bun have a certain meaning. So obviously the cross is a crucifixion of Jesus. The spices signify the spices used to embalm him at his burial. And some hot cross buns also include orange peel to reflect the bitterness of Jesus's time on the cross. So it's quite a religious food that we have. Now, there are some odd facts about hot cross buns. So there are some superstitions surrounding them. One of them is that buns baked and served on Good Friday, so this year, the 29th of March, will not spoil or grow moldy during the subsequent year. I do not want to try and eat a hot cross bun baked on Good Friday in December. Absolutely not. Another encourages keeping such a bun for medicinal purposes. And a piece of it given to someone ill is said to help them recover. Again, I don't want to try that. If you want to try that, please let us know at formazione@emilywell.com if you've survived eating such a bun. If these buns are taken on a sea voyage, they are said to protect against shipwreck. So if they had taken these on the Titanic, it may not have sunk. If they are hung in the kitchen, they are said to protect against fires and ensure that all breads turn out perfectly. And of course, the hanging bun is replaced each year. There's some more facts. Well, let's see what people are saying. No, thanks. Eleanor, tablet with slides. Yeah, I think, can everyone else see the slides okay? I think maybe it might just be on Eleanor's tablet. But again, Eleanor, you'll get the handout with all the information in, so you'll be able to see what we've gone through. So back in 1592, during the reign of Elizabeth I of England, the London Clerk of Markets issued a decree, so he made it a law, forbidding the sale of hot cross buns and other spice breads, except at burials on Good Friday or at Christmas. The punishment for breaking such a law was forfeiture of all the forbidden product to the poor. So there was a nice ending for some people. As a result of this decree, hot cross buns at the time were primarily made in domestic kitchens. Further attempts to suppress the sale of these items took place during the reign of James I of England, possibly for religious reasons, if we think about it that way. However, today, lots of them are sold in supermarkets countrywide. Now, a tip with this that you could use in the classroom is getting your students to research a typical food. So maybe the colomba. Why do Italians eat colomba at Easter? I'm sure they know, but if you've got your students to research the history, they may also come up with some wonderful and weird facts about it. Maybe. Of course, we need to put music and food together, and we have this little nursery rhyme. So I remember when I was at school, we would sing this nursery rhyme at Easter. It was traditionally a street cry. So when they were trying to entice people to buy their hot cross buns, people would shout this, but it was later adapted into a nursery rhyme. So we're going to have a quick listen to hot cross buns.
Hot cross buns, hot cross buns. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. If you have no daughters, give them to your sons. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns.
Not the most creative of nursery rhymes, but what you could do is use it as an example to show your students and get them to come up with a rhyme to accompany a traditional Italian Easter food. I'm trying to remember because when I was in Italy, someone gave me a lamb, and it was made from, I think, pasta di mandorla. But I don't know the name of it, but it was really nice. And also in Sicily, someone once gave me an egg that had like pastry wrapped over it. I also don't remember the name of that, especially not in Sicilian. But maybe your students could come up with songs to incorporate those ones. Panarello. Thank you, Lorena. So obviously each region has different traditions. So you could also focus on that and get your students to come up with something creative and inventive to kind of showcase the traditions that they have in their region. In the UK, we just all eat the same thing, especially at Easter. Chocolate, more chocolate. Now, here we have a recipe. So if any of your students like cooking, I don't know if it's possible to cook at school, or you could just go through this, but they could do it at home as another project. But can anybody predict the ingredients of hot cross buns? We spoke about some of them. You can think of anything, let me know in the chat. This recipe is also good because it looks at some verbs that we often use in cooking, such as pour, add, sift, very particular to baking, melt, beat, stir, knead. I love a bit of English pronunciation. Divide, place, cover, mix, and cut. And we also have some abbreviations in the recipe I'm about to show you. So this is something else that you could work on with your students, just expanding their vocabulary. So you could look at the abbreviations ML, TSP, TBSP, and GR. So again, if you know any of those, let me know in the chat and I'll see if you're right. Anyone knows? Flour, eggs, yeast, milk. Yes, Claudia. Tablespoon. Perfect, Louisa. Okay, everyone knows. Yes. Teaspoon. Brilliant. Fantastic. Yeah, tablespoon. Teaspoon and tablespoon. Brilliant. ML. Anyone? Milligram, teaspoon. Milliliter. Yes, well done, Rita. I often bake American cakes. Oh, well done, Claudia. Grams, perfect. Okay, you guys get top of the class. Yeah. So again, using this recipe in class could expand your students' already quite wide food vocabulary. Things such as cinnamon, nutmeg, mixed peel. And again, the verbs, if any of your students want to go into the catering industry, maybe working abroad, having a knowledge of some of this vocabulary would really help them. And similarly, you could get your students to come up with their recipe for one of their favorite dishes that they have at Easter. Or get them to research a recipe from another country too. Lots of them. Yes, Antonella, well done. Yeah, you can teach the use of the imperative, yeah, when we give instructions. Brilliant. So there are lots of different things to do. Obviously, we just give you them an idea and you can do with them as you wish. But things like recipes, the possibilities are endless. Okay, now, Josh's favourite, we've got some literature for Easter, and we're going to have a look at W.B. Yeats. So, William Butler Yeats was one of the greatest 20th century poets and arguably the greatest ever Irish poet. He developed from a late Romantic poet interested in Irish mythology and mysticism into a thoroughly modern poet. Although part of the Protestant establishment in predominantly Catholic Ireland, he was always a strong supporter of Irish independence. And in fact, in later years became an honorary senator of the Irish Free State. One of the great things about Yeats's poetry is how his life becomes the mythology that he draws on. His friends become historical figures, and he was able to influence the thought of his time in a way few literary figures have done before or even since. He's quite a legend. One of the key moments of the Irish independence movement is the inspiration for perhaps his greatest poem, Easter 1916. So while we do think about Easter as, you know, the religious celebration, also chocolate, holidays, I guess more in English history, there is also there were the troubles between the UK and Ireland. So it's also good to think about those at this time of the year and see how far the relationship has come since then. Yes, the quarrel of the sparrows in the eaves. So, on Easter Monday, which is obviously this year, it will be April 1st, which is strange because obviously in England we have April Fool's Day and you guys have the, something fish. It's a strange mix that we have this year of the 2 days coinciding. But back in 1916, Easter Monday fell on April 24th, and a group of Irish nationalists proclaimed the establishment of the Irish Republic. And along with some 1,600 followers, staged a rebellion against the British government in Ireland. The rebels seized prominent buildings in Dublin and clashed with British troops. Within a week, the insurrection had been suppressed and more than 2,000 people were dead or injured. The leaders of the rebellion soon were executed. Initially, there was little support from the Irish people for the Easter Rising. However, public opinion later shifted and the executed leaders were hailed as martyrs. In 1921, a treaty was signed that in 1922 established the Irish Free State, which eventually became the modern-day Republic of Ireland. So in the end, they did win. And Yeats had long been an advocate of Irish independence, but had not supported violence. He knew a lot of those involved in the uprising personally. In fact, one had been married to his muse, Maud Gonne. One of the greatest political poems of all time, Easter 1917, still manages to evoke martyrdom and rebirth, traditional themes of Easter. And I don't know if anyone's been to Dublin. Obviously, MLA does also have trips to Dublin where they'll go to the centre. But on the general post office on O'Connell Street, you can still see the bullet holes in the walls that were fired during the Easter Rising. So that's a nice reminder. It's not a nice reminder, but that's a reminder of what happened and how far Ireland has come to now be the Republic of Ireland. That's it. Pesce di aprile. Thank you, Claudia. Couldn't remember. So we're going to listen to Easter 1916 by W.B. Yeats. I don't think I could do it justice reading it with this cold. So we're going to listen instead.
Easter 1916 by W.B. Yeats. I have met them at close of day, coming with vivid faces from counter or desk among grey 18th century houses. I have passed with a nod of the head, or polite meaningless words, or have lingered a while and said polite meaningless words, and thought before I had done of a mocking tale or a jibe to please a companion, around the fire at the club, being certain that they and I but lived where motley is worn, all changed, changed utterly, a terrible beauty is born. That woman's days were spent in ignorant goodwill, her nights in argument until her voice grew shrill. What voice more sweet than hers, when young and beautiful she rode to harriers? This man kept a school and rode our winged horse. This other, his helper and friend, was coming into his force. He might have won fame in the end, so sensitive his nature seemed, so daring and sweet his thought. This other man I had dreamed, a drunken, vainglorious lout. He had done most bitter wrong to some who are near to my heart. Yet I number him in the song. He too has resigned his part in the casual comedy. He too has been changed in his turn, transformed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. Hearts with one purpose alone, through summer and winter seem enchanted to a stone to trouble the living stream. The horse that comes from the road, the rider, the birds that range from cloud to tumbling cloud, minute by minute they change. A shadow of cloud on the stream changes minute by minute. A horse hoof slides on the brim, and a horse plashes within it. The long-legged moorhens dive, and hens to moorcocks call. Minute by minute they live, the stones in the midst of all. Too long a sacrifice can make a stone of the heart. Oh, when may it suffice? That is heaven's part, our part, to murmur name upon name, as a mother names her child when sleep at last has come on limbs that had run wild. What is it but nightfall? No, no, not night, but death. Was it needless death after all? For England may keep faith for all that is done and said. We know their dream enough to know they dreamed and are dead. But what if excess of love bewildered them till they died? I rout it out in a verse, Macdonagh and Macbride, and Connolly and Pearce, now and in time to be, wherever green is worn, are changed, changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born.
Very moving poem. Okay, Rita says the poem is used for high school students. Yes, I think they would appreciate it much more than maybe middle school. But it's very moving, and for them also to know the history behind the poem, I think is also, it helps them to understand the poem that bit more. So in this poem, Yeats starts by reflecting on the occasions that he has met these people and said polite, meaningless words. Suddenly, there has been a change, and these men have left the casual comedy to become tragic figures. In the second stanza, Yeats refers to his previous impressions of these people, some positive, some negative. Even John McBride, a man who allegedly beat his wife, eats his great love, Maud Gonne, now is seen in this tragic light. The poem hits its stride in the third stanza with a philosophical, mythical contemplation of how the stone, fanaticism, troubles the living and active elements of the landscape. In the last stanza, Yeats shows his ambivalence. Was the violence justified? Will England keep its promise to give Ireland more freedom after the Great War is won? We did. Like most great poems, Easter 1916 does not come down on one side of the argument or the other. The motley coloured clothing of a court fool has become green, the unmistakable colour of Irish independence, and the terrible beauty of their sacrifice remains. Their names must be uttered in the poem, even though Yeats seems to avoid them earlier. Easter 1916 has been echoed in many subsequent poems with varying success. One of the greatest poems to take up the ambivalent, wearied tones of Yeats's is W.H. Auden's September 1st, 1939, in which the English poet reflects on the outbreak of war in Europe from his new home in New York. Auden had recently written a widely praised poem about Yeats's death in memory of W.B. Yeats. So Yeats's poem would have been much in Auden's mind when he wished to mark a significant date in history. Not only the title and tone, but even the stanzaic form ultimately derives from Yeats's poem. Seamus Heaney, arguably Ireland's greatest poet since Yeats, often evokes Easter 1916 in his great poems of the Irish Troubles, such as Casualty. In this poem, Heaney recounts his friendship with an alcoholic fisherman who was killed in an IRA bomb. The blend of public events with personal recollection clearly finds its origins in Yeats's elegy for the dead of the Easter Rising. I feel that was quite a somber tone to end on, but I think it's good for, for students who study literature to understand the history, to really understand why the poet chose to write and put down that element of history in writing for all to see in the future. And of course, Josh would have delivered that much better than I did. But I hope you can appreciate it and use it in your lessons too. And we've come to the conclusion. So not only young students, but also older ones will find a lot in lessons on Easter and other festivities. As we mentioned, the literature probably best for your older students, maybe the recipe for some younger students. But hopefully we've given you a range of ideas that you can deliver in your classes from now until next Wednesday. But you could just ask your students to speak or write about what Easter means to me, or even how my family celebrates Easter, so that they can deliver a personal speech about Easter in their family. Because sometimes when your students make it personal, they put so much thought and effort into it that they really, really participate in the topic. Other celebrations can also be used in this way. Obviously, Josh and I usually deliver the lessons on Christmas, New Year's Eve, other festivities. What have we done? Valentine's Day. I think we're going to have an Earth Day again this year. Any celebration. I know last year when we spoke about autumn, we also touched on Diwali. Any festivity that is celebrated, bring it into the classroom, because if your students feel passionate about something, they're going to tell you all they know about it and really express themselves. Questions about traditions, festivities, and past and future holidays are a common topic for Cambridge speaking exams. That's something as well to bear in mind. Any lesson which gives students vocabulary for Easter will help them increase their chances of passing the exam. So remember, during the speaking exams, there's often a question referring to the past, something that they will do. What do they do every year? So preparing them with as much vocabulary as possible is always going to help them. So as I mentioned, we do have some ideas, but we always welcome any suggestions that you may have. So if anybody has anything that they really want us to do, please drop me a message in the chat now, because I have my pen ready to write them down. Anyone? Citizenship. Okay. You're very welcome, Isabella. CLIL, okay, CLIL in, I do love a CLIL lesson. CLIL in primary. Cooperative learning. Okay, thank you. I have made a note with my old MLA pen. Thank you for those. I'm trying to think what the next ones are. The next session we have is on teaching idioms, which is very nice. Festivities in Britain that Italians don't celebrate. Oh gosh. Everyday formal. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for those. I also love idioms, Christina. They're one of my favorite things. And teaching the ones that don't really make sense is one of my absolute favorite things. So I look forward to seeing you there. So the final thing is go. So thank you all for joining me. I hope you managed to follow along. It's not next week, Louisa. We're taking a break next week. So the next webinar will be on Thursday, the 4th of April. Thank you, Claudia. So yes, we're going to be looking at teaching idioms on Thursday, the 4th. Remember, if you don't get your certificate in the next few days, then drop us an email at formazione@mlaworld.com and we'll get that back to you. Yeah, the handout is full of lots of things that you can do with your students next week before you break up for Easter. So the final thing I have to say to you all is, again, thank you for joining me. And on behalf of MLA, but also on behalf of me in Yorkshire with my cold, I wish you all a safe and enjoyable Easter. And I look forward to seeing you all alongside Josh, because he will be back with me on the 4th of April. And have a lovely, lovely evening, everyone. Thank you.